Hey there, Apano here. In this video I'll go through how to implement defensive options into your platform fighting game. For this video, this includes parries, rolling to the right and rolling to the left. So if this tutorial series has been helpful to you, give this video a like and subscribe. And if you need any further help with the coding of this tutorial series, you can contact me on Discord through the Patreon in the description. So with that being said, let's hop into the tutorial. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is create a Hurtbox. So what we're going to do is click on our character. I'm going to be using the wolf character, just to spice things up because I've been using the box character for other parts of the series. So what we're going to do is add in a new child and want to have it be in area 2D. Then what we're going to do is under that area 2D, we're going to add a collision shape and then change its shape into being a rectangle. And so what we want to do is make the shape of this rectangle exactly the same as the collision box. So what I can do is go to collision box, go to copy properties, go to this collision shape and then paste properties, and as you can see it should fit into the same shape. So then what I'm going to do is change the name of area 2D and collision shape 2D into Hurtbox. So it should look something like this. So it should look something like this, where you have Hurtbox for the area 2D and then you have Hurtbox for the collision shape 2D. And so once you've done that, what you want to do is go to the Hurtbox and change it. Actually, my bad. Go to the area and go to its collision and change it. Enable layer 1, and then when it comes to the mask, change the mask from layer 1 to layer 2 and 3. So once you've done that, you might want to go to the Hurtbox, go to its debug color and change it to something that's more identifiable like this. Something that's kind of reddish if you want. Then we're going to do the exact same thing, but with the Hurtbox we're going to copy, then paste it, but change its name from Hurtbox to Parrybox. So it should look something like this. So the only difference right now should be that instead of it being called Hurtbox, it's now called a Parrybox. And another additional difference we want to make is have the Parrybox collision shape be disabled by default. And we also might want to change its debug color so that we can differentiate it from the Hurtbox. So I might change its color to something like this. There we go, something that's a bit brighter. And so just to double check, you want to make sure that the collision for the mask is 2 and 3, and then for the layer it is simply just 1. And so that should be it. In fact, before I go into the next part, you want to make each of these collision shape boxes unique with its name. And so now we can actually go into the script for our player character. Alright, so now moving into the script for the wolf character, what we're going to do is add the onReady variables for the Hurtbox and the Parrybox. So what we're going to do is go to all the onReady variables and we're going to add in some new variables. onReady var Hurtbox and then the Hurtbox, and then onReady var Parrybox and then the Parrybox. From here we're going to add in a new buffer, and this buffer is going to be called the shield buffer. So on the buffers we're going to add in a new buffer. It's going to be called shield buffer, and the value is going to be equal to 0. Now the code for the buffer is going to go under the update frames function, and the way this buffer is going to work is by increasing every single time you are holding the shield button. So when you hold the shield button, each frame the shield buffer is going to increase by 1. So that's how it's going to work. In fact, if you want to be more accurate with the frame timing, you might want to make it equal to floor delta times 60. So you might want to have it be something like this. You can have it be this or 1, it's up to you. And so now with that being done, we can then move on to the state machine. Alright, so for the next part of this tutorial, we're going to move into the state machine. So we're going to enter the state machine script, and near the top we're going to add in the new states. So the new states that we're going to add in, I'm going to add under the hit stun or maybe the grabbed states, and they're going to look something like this: parry, roll right and roll left. Then what we're going to do is add in the animations for each of these states. So what we're going to do is scroll all the way down, and when you find the hit stun state, we're going to add in the animations. So it should look something like this. So it should look something like this with the states.parry, states.roll right, states.roll left. And so lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a new function, and it's going to look something like this. Function can roll. So this will basically set the condition our player character has to be in order for our character to be able to roll. So if states include stand, moonwalk, run, walk, crouch, or dash, then you'll be able to roll. And so with that being said, let's actually include the code that would allow us to press the shield button and parry, roll left or roll right. So underneath this function that we have from the L cancelling video, we're going to add in some new lines of code, and it's going to look something like this. If input dot is action underscore pressed shield and can roll is equal to true, can roll, that function that we just made, and parent dot cooldown equals 0 and shield buffer is equal to 2, then carry out this line of code. What this basically means is once our cooldown for rolling has finished and we've at least pressed the shield button for 2 frames, then we are able to accurately and properly roll. And so from here on out, it then checks to see if you're pressing right, left, or neither, in which case you will enter the parry state. So now from here, I'm going to show you the code for the parry state, roll left state, and roll right state. So as for the parry state, it's going to look something like this. States.parry, and all this is doing at the beginning is making it so that when we are parrying, we stop immediately in our tracks. You're not allowed to slide and parry. If the frames is more than 3 but less than 10, what we're going to do is disable our Hurtbox and enable our Parrybox. What this does is makes it so that if our opponent attacks our character, the opponent's only going to be able to detect the Parrybox. After frame 11, the Hurtbox is going to be enabled and the Parrybox is going to be disabled. If parent.frame is equal to 30, then you return to the standing state. So the way this is meant to work is simply by enabling the Hurtbox again. So if let's say you do a parry and you mistime it and you are attacked after 11 frames but less than 30 frames, your Hurtbox is going to be enabled. Therefore you'll be able to be damaged and receive the attack. So moving on from this, I'm going to show you the roll left and roll right, which is pretty much the same but two different directions. And so here is the code for the roll right state and for the roll left state. The only difference between these two states is that for the roll right state, you're going to turn to the right, and for the roll left state, you're not going to turn. Apart from that, everything is the same. And so on frame 1, we're going to make the character's velocity in the horizontal axis 0. At frame 4, what we're going to do is make our character's velocity in the x direction equal to roll distance. In roll left is going to be minus roll distance. Then what we're going to do is disable the Hurtbox so that our character is not going to be able to get hit during their roll. So after frame 20, we're going to be able to receive damage. And so what we're going to say is if the frame is more than 19, which it should be if it's equal to 20, we're going to basically slow down our character. So because our character is going to be able to roll, so we're going to slow the character down, and we're going to give our character some lag frames so that as they're getting out of the roll, there's a slight delay and lag before they enter the landing state and are able to fully move again. And so that wraps it up for the state machine. Actually, there is one more state that we have to add, and this other state that we're going to add is going to be called the stunned state. So what we're going to do is scroll all the way to the top, and where our grabbed state is, underneath that we're going to add in the state, and it's going to be called stunned. Once you've done that, we are then going to add in the animations for the stun state. So scroll all the way down to the bottom where all of our animations are, and where the grab state is, we're going to change this and have it be stunned. And we're going to play the hit stun animation because we don't actually have a stunned animation, but if you do, put it in the play animations function. And then lastly, what we're going to do is actually add in the code for this state. So on the states.grabbed, we're going to add in a new state, and it's going to look like this. States.stunned, if parent.frame is more than or equal to 60 times 10, then we're going to reset the frame, and then we're going to reset our character to the standing state. Now the reason I'm doing 60 times 10 is because there are 60 frames in a second. So what I'm doing is I'm saying if our character is stunned for 10 seconds, our character is going to be stunned for 10 seconds, and our character is going to enter into the stun state when they attack the opponent, but the opponent has parried. You can change this to whatever you want. You might not want to hard code this, you might want to make this a variable if you want to, but this is just another state that we have to add for our state machine. Quickly before I move on to anything else, there's just one more line of code that I want to add. Under the stunned state, there's an additional line of code that we should probably add, and it looks like this. What this line of code does over here is it makes it so that when our character is stunned and if they're on the ground, they're going to slow down to a halt. But if our character's in the air, they're going to continue with movement that pertains to characters that are in the air. And so now we're finally moving on to the hitbox scene. What we're going to do is enter the script for the hitbox scene, and we're going to add in a new variable, and it should be called parry. So it should look something like this: var parry equals false. This is going to be used throughout this new version of the hitbox scene. And so what we need to do is we need to change body entered into area entered, because our hitbox is no longer going to be detecting the body of our opponent, but now the hurtbox or parry box area. And so now what we're going to do is under the hitbox underscore collide function, we're going to change this up a little bit. The changes should look like this. Alright, so now this is the new version of the hitbox underscore collide function. What this is saying is, if the body, and even though he's using the word body, it's actually the area, if the body dot parent is in the playlist, then we're going to move on. Now you need to understand there's a difference between the body here and the body down here. This body is the body of the area. So when it says body over here, it's actually talking about the parry box or the hurt box. But the body over here is talking about the player character. So that's the differentiation between the two. So if our hurt box is in the if our hurtbox dot get parent, so our player character is in the parent list, we're going to check if the body dot name is parry box. So once this hitbox is collided with its opponent, is the opponent area that is collided with, is it the parry box or the hurt box? If it's the parry box, what we're going to do is go to area, and this mask that we have over here to detect the area of our opponent, we're going to turn this off. That's what this line of code does over here. The reason why we do this is to prevent any multi-hit moves or any awkward timing around our opponent's parry. Since our hitbox has collided with our opponent's hurtbox or parry box, we're going to turn parry to true. And if our opponent is not on the floor, what we're going to do is make it so that our opponent is now stunned. And so if I go over to physics underscore process, we're going to add in some new lines of code over here, and it's going to look something like this. Alright, so I've changed these lines of code over here. So all I've added is an if condition or an if statement to say if parry is equal to true, then our opponent's going to enter into the stun state and the hitbox is going to Q3. The reason I've done it like this is because if our opponent is, let's say, in the air or they're doing a multi-hit attack, when the hitbox has finally reached its duration, we also want the opponent to stay stunned, just in case a situation arises where there's a multi-hit attack, especially ones such as aerial attacks. I've noticed that there was a problem, which is why I added in this line of code. So now I can demonstrate to you this code working. So before I go into the demonstration, there's just one coding error that I made. This else is meant to be indented. So this is meant to go underneath this if not body.getParent in player list. So under the hitbox scene, you want to go to the script and you want to make sure that this else is indented. Previously it was like this, make sure it's like this now. And so now I can actually demonstrate to you the parrying and the rolling working. And so finally I can move on to the demonstration. On the right hand side I have Wolf, and on the left hand side I have Fox. The Fox character, I have done everything that I've done to the Wolf character but to the Fox character, and so now I can actually play the game and you can see the parries, the rolling to the left and rolling to the right working. So just to show you the rolling to the right, you can see the characters rolling to the right, and then you have the rolling to the left. Oh, one button. Rolling to the left, rolling to the right. And then you also have the parry. As you can see, the parry animation is currently working as well. So I have my Wolf character, and so I'm going to get his attack ready. I'm going to do a down tilt. If I press parry and then do an attack whilst that parrying is happening, our wolf character should be able to get stunned, as you can see. So I'll do that again. And then that should also work for aerial attacks as well. So I'm going to do a neutral air. There you go, he got stunned as well, again. There we go. So as you can see, everything is working. I'm also going to try and have my wolf character attack my fox character as my fox character is rolling. There we go. So as you can see, no percentage was accumulated on the fox character. Alright, so that's it for this video. In the next video, I'll be going through the second part of the defensive options, including air dodging and free falls. If this video has been helpful, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. And if you need any help with the code or you want access to it, join the Discord server through the Patreon down below. And I'll see you in the next video.